On February 28, 2026, at 2:17 in the morning Tehran time, the most sophisticated air campaign since the Gulf War was already 90 minutes in. Over 200 American aircraft were operating simultaneously across Iranian airspace. B-2 Spirit stealth bombers were descending on targets buried under 300 feet of mountain. F-22 Raptors had already cleared the corridor. Electronic warfare aircraft had silenced Iranian radar from the Arabian Peninsula to the Caspian Sea, and in the targeting bay of a B-2, flying at 50,000 feet above Fordow, a pilot pressed a release sequence for a 30,000-pound bomb that Iran spent 30 years making sure would never reach them. This is Operation Epic Fury, the night America ended Iran's nuclear program. This mission didn't start in 2026. It started the day the United States first identified Iran's uranium enrichment program as an existential threat. For 2 decades, the Pentagon maintained a contingency plan known as Operation Midnight Hammer, a strike package targeting Iran's entire nuclear infrastructure. Every president since George W. Bush was briefed on it. Every one of them chose negotiation instead. The JCPOA in 2015, back-channel talks in 2023, every diplomatic off-ramp was taken. Until February 2026, when Iran's enrichment levels crossed 83.7% and nuclear talks with the Trump administration collapsed publicly and completely. The order changed. Midnight Hammer became Epic Fury, and this time, the briefing rooms went quiet in a different way. In the 3 weeks before the strike, the United States executed one of the largest quiet military buildups in modern history. 2 carrier strike groups repositioned within range. Dozens of F-22 Raptors staged through RAF Lakenheath in England. Wild Weasel F-16s deployed to forward bases across the Arabian Peninsula. And at Whiteman Air Force Base in Missouri, maintenance crews ran 24-hour rotations, loading GBU-57 massive ordnance penetrators onto B-2 Spirit stealth bombers. The pilots who would fly them were told not to leave the building. This mission was different from any air campaign in history. Iran's nuclear infrastructure was built specifically to be unbombable. After Israel destroyed Iraq's Asyric reactor in 1981, Iranian engineers made a fundamental decision. Everything goes underground. Fordow, Iran's primary enrichment facility, sits beneath 300 feet of solid mountain rock outside the city of Qom. It was designed to absorb explosions that would destroy any above-ground facility. The United States had no conventional answer to Fordow until 2011, when the Pentagon finished development of the GBU-57 massive ordnance penetrator. At 30,000 pounds, it is the largest non-nuclear bomb in the American inventory. It buries itself through rock before detonating inside the target. There are only 20 of them in existence, and the only aircraft that can carry them, 2 at a time, is the B-2 Spirit. On the night of February 27th, 2 B-2 South left Missouri at 6 p.m. local time. They crossed the Atlantic. They refueled twice from KC-135 tankers over the Mediterranean. They descended toward Iranian airspace with every electronic emission suppressed. No radar could ping them. No Iranian early warning system registered their approach. They were over the target before Tehran knew. The operational sequence was built around one foundational problem. You cannot hit Fordow first. If Iran detects incoming aircraft before the B-2S reach their windows, they have minutes to activate hardened command structures. The solution was layered suppression. EA-18G Growlers from the USS Gerald Ford launched first. Their mission is purely electronic. Blind the enemy. They jammed Iran's integrated air defense network across a 400-mile corridor. Wild Weasel F-16s followed with HARM anti-radiation missiles, hunting any radar system that came back online. F-22 Raptors swept ahead of the strike package, clearing the air of any Iranian fighters. By the time the B-2 South entered Iranian airspace, They were flying through a corridor of engineered silence. At 2:17 a.m., the GBU-57s impacted Fordow. At 2:31, Natanz. At 2:47, the Isfahan fuel fabrication facility. In 90 minutes, 3 of Iran's 5 primary nuclear facilities sustained structural damage severe enough to halt operations indefinitely. More than 200 American aircraft had executed one of the most complex coordinated strikes in the history of U.S. air power. Not a single American aircraft was lost. But there is always a cost. 3 U.S. service members were killed and 5 wounded during Iranian retaliatory missile strikes on American bases across the region. Their families found out the way military families always do. A car pulling up outside the house. A person in uniform at the door. A knock they'd been dreading since deployment day. One of the 3 was a 24-year-old Army staff sergeant. His second child was born while he was deployed. He never came home to meet her. On the B-2 South returning from Iran, the ground crews noted something in the debris logs. Both pilots had been airborne for over 36 hours. 2 American airmen, alone in a cockpit smaller than most sedans, flying over hostile territory with 30,000 pounds of live ordnance. They taxied to the hangar. The ground crews applauded. Neither pilot got out of their seat for several minutes. By the morning of March 1st, Iranian state television went off air for 47 minutes. When it returned, there was no speech, just music. The IRGC fired 47 ballistic missiles. Israel's Arrow 3 and U.S. THAAD batteries intercepted 44. 3 got through. The centrifuges at Fordow have stopped spinning. Iran spent 30 years building nuclear infrastructure buried under mountains. On one night in February 2026, 2 American pilots proved it wasn't deep enough. Operation Epic Fury was not the end of the story. But for the men who flew those B-2 South, it was exactly the night they were built for. Most of them will never be publicly named. There will be no parade, no monument. But this morning, the Middle East is different because they flew. That's not a headline. That's a legacy. Subscribe to Heroes in Uniform. We cover the stories behind the strikes and the Americans who make them happen.